Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we study film trilogies and decide which film tried to order a trout back in 1987. We ain't got no goddamn trout. I'm your host Griner, and joining me today is Trouble.
Oh, the worst kind, darling. In your last days in the nursing home, you'll think of me and giggle.
And I'm Luke Morgan, and wolves don't kill unlucky deer. They kill the weak ones.
Ooh, that's deep. That's deep.
Somber.
So this week we're doing the Frontier Trilogy. Not a true trilogy? I don't know. Does someone want to explain why this is a trilogy?
All right, I thought of the exact comparison with the Ice Cream Trilogy, Blood and Ice Cream Trilogy by Wright. Like, what makes that a trilogy, right? And I think it's the same sort of idea. It's thematic similarities, it's tonal similarities, and it's some sort of creative vision. Like, there's no narrative between those three, but they definitely feel three of a piece. And I think this is much the same. It deals with a lot of the same frontier theory and like American identity in the modern 21st century.
Yep.
And it's got that creative vision behind Taylor Sheridan, and like it's got recurring actors like Gil Birmingham. I think
John
it's
Bernthal,
Yep. I think it's really got that sense of there's a clear insight here, and they feel, even though they feel pretty distinct because they're three different directors, I think they still do fit quite nicely, and they have a lot of similarities. Personally, I don't know. Did you guys think they were? Did you feel struck by their lack of commonality or anything?
So Conan, I owe you an apology. Many a moon ago, when you wanted to bring this trilogy, I argued that it wasn't a real trilogy. Watching this, I can definitely it felt like a trilogy to me. Obviously, they're different films, different directors, different settings and everything like that. But there's definitely like a thematic vibe to these films that when you watch them, knowing that they're a trilogy and knowing that it's by Taylor Sheridan, it feels like I felt like I was watching a trilogy. It didn't feel like, oh, this is a very different film. Like, it felt very much like these are three story beats that are being told about this overarching story. So
yeah. I mean, and we've definitely done some trilogies that feel very disjointed and unrelated because there's no creative through line, right? Like, each one's made by a different set of people. They have a different idea about what these movies should be about. Like, Predator's a great example that we did last week. Like,
this is more of a trilogy than that.
Like, apart from them all having having a Predator in them, they're not very similar movies. Whereas these, you definitely feel they almost feel like different perspectives on the same, part of America, the same, the frontier, I guess, is exactly what it is. And yeah, it's. I would love to hear from someone who had seen these three movies but not known they were related in any way, to see how they feel about it. But I feel like that's asking a lot because some of them are pretty small movies. Like, I feel like people who are watching these are kind of aware of their lineage and where they've come from.
Yeah, I think as well, like, these films are pretty interesting, and the Taylor Sheridan part of the conversation is interesting because he's kind of become a bit of a Titan's not the right word, but he's become a bit of a big thing in the current American film and TV industry. Because Yellowstone, have you guys seen that, or 1883?
No, I haven't.
I haven't. Everyone I know seems to be watching Yellowstone and telling me to watch Yellowstone. My wife started watching it. And after this, I was 100% like, oh man, I should watch Yellowstone. I really should.
Yeah, so I've seen it. Me and my wife have seen it all. We haven't seen 1883, but Yellowstone was a surprisingly successful show. It's big. When it comes out, it is very popular. One of the biggest shows on TV, which in America mainly, but it's still kind of surprising how huge it is. And Taylor Sheridan's kind of got a bit of this mystique around him now. Like, I remember when these movies were coming out. So they came out in 2015, 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
All the press and the journalism around them were very much aware that this is written by one dude, Taylor Sheridan. And once Hell or High Water came out, I was like, this is him again. Here is a distinct voice. Here's a new creative voice in the film industry. And so I couldn't really separate them. They were always kind of talking about these movies were always like, these are Taylor Sheridan's films, which isn't really very common. Like, there's only a handful of writers really that have that sort of sway. But I felt like everyone talking about these, part of that conversation was, this is written by Taylor Sheridan, who's this actor turned writer. And now he's probably one of the biggest working. Yeah, like Yellowstone 1883 are huge draws for Paramount Plus. He made Wish Me Dead, the movie that came out with Angelina Jolie. He wrote the series, what was it, Mayor of Kingstown? Like, he is churning stuff out, and it's all really successful. And I think these films they can't really escape that, which is interesting.
Because like that's the thing. I didn't even know about two of these films existing before Conan mentioned them. Like last year, I had seen Sicario, like because I feel like it was like the popular one. You know, it was nominated for all the Oscars and everything like that. This big cast. So I heard the buzz around that and had watched that. Then all these years had never even heard of Hell or High Water or Wind River, which surprised me until you mentioned it. I was like, what? How did I not know about these films like, existing at all? And straight away they interested me. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess for me, like Wind River was the only one I hadn't seen. But I guess I am that person. Like I'd seen the other two without knowing they were related. And
there you go.
Didn't make the connection, but I saw them like years apart and,
Yeah.
maybe if I'd watched them back to back, I would have felt the connection a bit more.
I think, without the connection, there's nothing. Because some of them feel differently as well. It's like Sicario is pure style, whereas the other two have a bit more insight and poignance to them. And it's like they're trying to achieve different things. So if you don't see them knowing that, like, I don't think you'd be expected to be like, wow, those were all written very similarly or anything like.
Yeah.
Especially when you chuck in Sicario 2, he's somewhere in there as well.
Yeah, that muddies the waters a lot.
I mean, it is also written by him, but yes.
Yeah.
All right. Dennis Franz, where are we putting him in these films? I mean, he could be our through line in terms of actors.
Dennis
he could be
Franz
the Frontier. The man was
Frontier.
Frontier, that's what I was going to say, but I was like, I can't.
I mean, what would you have? He could be Jeff Bridges in Hell or High Water.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't get rid of Jeff Bridges, though.
You can't. And all the
so
actors
good.
in these films are great. I mean, I don't know. Who could he be in Sicario? He could be Josh Brolin.
I'm trying to think of the actor's name in Sicario. I'll find him. Victor Garber. I only know him because of Alias. He was like the handler in Alias, but
that dude, yes.
He's not even that big. It's not a big role, but he appears from time to time.
He'd be perfect for that role, I think. Yeah,
he'd be good at just any of those. Like, he'd be great as a banker in Hell or High Water, right? Either a good one, or the lawyer they have, or an evil banker. He'd fit pretty well.
Nah, I want him to be the dude that's like, "Oh, you're robbing me too? You're not even Mexicans." That can be him. Just making snide comments at these robbers.
I think he's definitely a tweaker in Wind River. He's definitely on something. He's on something.
In Littlefeather's house, Dennis Franz is on the lounge.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, let's kick it off with Sicario. FBI field agent Kate Mesa is approached to join a special anti-drugs task force that also involves the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice. She's given very little information about the methods or aims of the task force, except that it is going after senior members of a Mexican drug cartel. She soon realizes that their methods are quite unorthodox, even potentially illegal, and the aim may be even more unconventional.
So, first up with Sicario, I want to say something. And Conan, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Griner told me, secretly, he didn't really like Sicario the first time he watched it.
I did say that. I did say that. Yeah. I'll stand by it because it's the truth.
Were you ashamed of my reaction?
No, I wasn't. I mean,
No, but I remember being like,
why wouldn't you tell me?
I told you that in private, Luke. How dare you?
I'm sorry, but I found it funny because like at the end of the last podcast, we were all talking and like watching it back, I was like, oh man, Sicario's great. And you're like, oh, Sicario's so good. And I can just see Griner there like, oh, I disagree. And then when we were talking another time, he's like, yeah, I didn't really rate Sicario too much. And I was like, what?
I genuinely don't remember this, so I blocked it out.
Look,
unpack that. Do you?
Look, I'll say the first time I watched it, I wasn't like blown away. I think I'd had it hyped up a lot by probably Luke, mostly, I think. But I think Look, I like this movie. I enjoyed it a lot more watching it this time. I think it has some really great moments. I think plot-wise, it's probably, in my opinion, the weakest of the three. Like, its story is the least interesting. I don't know. There's some good characters, and I think there's a section in the middle of that movie that's pretty boring.
Really? What part is that?
Just
if you
where
say
they're...
the whole the border stop, I'm gonna slap you.
No.
Oh,
It's
man.
mostly like where they're like interviewing all the people who have crossed the border at the bus station, trying to figure out where they're from, and then back at the hotel room, and she's going and sleeping with John Barenthal, and then like I don't know.
Wristband reveal. The wristband.
The wristband.
That's good. I
So
like
good.
It's all right, but I mean, there's moments in this like the opening, like that opening is haunting, like
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
like the
Yep.
bodies in the walls, the guy crawling along the floor with the blown off limbs, like,
Brutal.
even just like slamming through the wall with the truck at the start, so good.
Yeah.
This,
From everything
like,
sorry, continue.
I was just like, this film, there's so many times where I was just like, oh man, like it's brutal. Like just like what they do, like they don't hold back from showing you like the brutality of the cartel and all this stuff. And it's just like there's those certain scenes. Like when I think of Sicario 7 years after watching it, that was like the scene. Like I remember that scene because I remember being like a bit traumatized by it, you know? And like it's like, yeah, it's done really well. Some of the shots in this film are just absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it's filled with amazing parts. Like the tension in this film is so palpable, and that's kind of what this movie is, right? It's just 2 hours of tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, where you've got that pale desert shot, and you just see like those black SWAT guys move through.
Such a cool
It's like
shot.
it's just already really like an interesting contrast, and then it's just tense and builds, and it just never lets up. You go through that like 20-minute border crossing, which is amazing. Like
Oh, the
how that's
tension.
constructed.
That whole scene is so awesome. Even like before they've even picked him up, just like the shot of like these 5 black cars in a row, like, you know, just very smoothly going through the whole thing. The music just pumping and pumping and building up and building up. It's terrific, man. And I was like on the edge of my seat watching it. I was like, oh, so good.
Yeah, like you feel like such a sitting duck where they're just stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, this is the worst. And then
Yep.
it's like, it's almost like a Mexican standoff. Like everybody knows who that, like which each team is, but you know, they can't make a move first. And it's just, yeah, it's really well done. That scene, yeah, outstanding. I don't have any problems with that scene at all.
Yeah. I don't know. Everyone in this movie is like firing on all cylinders. That score, Johan Johansson, really tragic because he's dead now. Like he died last year. And still very young, but left behind a pretty significant body of work. It's just remarkable, like how he that sort of constant drumming and like this unsettling discordance in every frame is really remarkable. Like Roger Deakins is a cinematographer who's probably the most famous cinematographer alive. And like just some of the shots are beautiful. Like there's the scene where the cop car drives into the desert and there's this massive storm rolling in.
Yeah.
And it just looks fun. And there's like this strike of lightning that's at the perfect time. And that's remarkable. Like some of the shots when there's a shot that I noticed this watch, when her and John Bernthal are in the room, like it just keeps showing them sort of talking, but they're in complete darkness, like silhouetted by the light behind them.
Yeah.
It's just these amazing choices like that. It's like, oh, there's such a great visual eye by Deakins and Denis Villeneuve. It's a remarkable piece of filmmaking, I think.
The SWAT team members, like with all the horizons in the background at the end of the film, like beautiful.
Yeah. This film's just full of paintings, just beautiful paintings you look at.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of like Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro? Because they're kind of the main two characters, right? Even though they're not the protagonists.
Benicio del Toro is hardcore in this film. Like I love him in this film, man. Like intense. The whole I'm skipping ahead, but like the whole final scene with him at the dinner table is like, oh, it's so good and so brutal. It's great, but Brolin's great.
Yeah,
as
that's
always.
the scene that makes his character make sense, right? Like,
Yep.
And I mean, I know it's the point, but both of them are like such an enigma for this whole film. And then you get that scene, it's like, oh, okay, I understand, you know, more or less what's going on here. I understand why they're doing what they're doing. But yeah, everybody is really good. Like, yeah, I enjoy all the actors in this movie. So good.
Yeah, Emily.
Like,
Yeah,
Emily
Blunt.
Blunt's always awesome, but she plays this role so good.
yeah. And Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah,
You know, before he was as massive as he is now. It's really cool to see he's in there.
I'd forgotten he was in it, like, because obviously
Yeah.
back when I watched it, he wasn't like a big star or anything.
Yeah,
And watching it again, I was like, oh crap, like, yeah, he's there, but
he's rocking it. Like Grant, it's interesting you say that you think the plotting of this one's the weakest, because it's kind of the criticism that I see come up a bit. Like, does this story even make sense? And there's a lot of criticism thrown at Taylor Sheridan in general for his writing of female characters, which I don't personally, I don't think is really fair. I think Kate Mazer is really good, and I think what this movie does, which is both testament to him and to Denis, is that it captures her, like, it really puts you in her head, right? Where we're just kind of along with her, along for the ride, which is what her role in the mission is. She's not actually doing anything.
Yeah.
She's literally played, like, she gets played by them, and we as the audience and thus get played as well.
just
And
there,
so
just to be
yeah,
there.
just to legalize it. And so she's kind of like trying to figure out what's going on, like we are. And the plotting is really all over the shop, which I think is very intentional. And it makes you, like you say, you're wondering the whole time, I'm not really sure what the plan is here,
Yeah,
but I'm not supposed to, because there's these guys who are giving me half truths and bits of information. And I guess the more times I watch it, the more I really like that sort of mystery to it. Whereas we'll get to in the other two, there's not really the same mystery in the other two, I think.
Yeah, it's fair enough. And I mean, yeah, her being the audience surrogate, like, I mean, that has been done time and time again, but this is done masterfully. Like, the way they keep the mystery up around these other two characters, and they're just so strange. Like him sitting there in sandals at that meeting at the start and stuff like that. Like, and like when Del Toro's talking to that other, he's talking to that other agent where they're just before he's about to torture the cartel leader. And they're like talking in code, and it's like, what the hell is going on here? Who is this guy? What? It's just, yeah, like it keeps you guessing the whole way through. My problems with this movie, and I remember them again, like I feel like it gets a bit slow there, and then I don't enjoy everything leading up to Del Toro, going.
You don't like the third act with the SWAT team.
Yeah.
No, I think going through the tunnels with the night vision, I don't think it looks great. I think it's incredibly confusing, which is what is going on, which is okay. Like, I understand that's kind of half the point of it, but I don't find it that entertaining to watch.
Do you know what's funny? When I was watching it, I was like, man, see, if the Predator had this vision, it would make more sense, because I was like, they can see the people more clearly.
Yeah.
But I kind of agree with you, Grana, with that. Like, I remember before watching this time, I remember thinking the third act was the weakest part of the film. And watching again, I don't think it's bad or anything like that, but it's definitely not like what I remember this film for, everything, until he gets to the other side, basically, and then like takes the cop car. Then I'm like, okay, cool, I'm back on board again. And then it's really cool again. But all I feel like there's a lot of just showing the night vision goggles, the two different types of one, like the white vision and the green vision. People getting shot at. It's just, it's not super interesting to me. But so I get that.
I agree with that. Like, I think this film could probably be cut by about 10 minutes. And it's that section every time. And I always do think of it. I'm like, it's phenomenal leading up to there. And that is the weakest part. It's got that beautiful shot of them walking by the horizon. And then it goes under. And like the story behind how they got those cameras working, and like they were using these proper night vision things for it. It wasn't edited at all. And how like they were heating up people's boots and putting them on the ground so to get the thermal footprints and stuff. Like it's all really fascinating, like from a film nerd perspective.
Yeah.
But I agree that it is kind of like 15 minutes of sort of confusing, like there are soldiers going through and I don't know who I'm following or why or where I'm going, until that final reveal where she turns down the wrong tunnel. That whole scene up where he just like shoots her in the vest and he's like, "Don't get back up," and it's like, oh shit, it's great. And then the final scene where he comes up to her and is like, "You got to sign this form."
Oh, it's brutal, man.
Yeah. And just that great, so like you just see the gun rise out of the camera and just go under her neck. It's like, oh.
And he'd do it too. Like, it's just like,
just seen him kill kids, right? We know what he's going to do.
Yeah. I think for me, the first time I watched it, I found that ending quite unsatisfying. Do you guys
Okay.
like? I think I enjoyed it more this time. I was more okay with not, with like I almost would have preferred her to get shot there, like her to not acquiesce,
Jesus.
get killed. It's a sadder ending, but
Yeah.
she keeps to her character in some ways. I don't know. I felt a little disappointed by it the first time. I enjoyed it more this time, I think. Do you guys think it works?
So I think this movie, even though it doesn't have quite the, like I mentioned, the profundity, that it's not as profound as the other two and what it's
Sure.
trying to tap into. I think it does make a really interesting commentary on the drug war and how sort of the futility of it, right?
Yes.
And
Like nothing's going to change after this is the whole thing, right? Yeah.
nothing's going to change, and how morality, despite being the main motivation for it, is actually completely irrelevant.
Mm.
And how
Yeah.
trying to come at this and being like, well, I got to do the right and wrong, it's like that just doesn't matter. And Mesa as a character is so sort of defined by that, right? She's like, she wants to do this because she thinks it's right. She wants to catch these bad guys who are doing evil things. And that final moment where she doesn't shoot him is kind of like she knows that he's right.
Yeah.
And it's this, and
Mm.
it's like it's a tragic ending because she's realizing that her whole philosophy is wrong. It's like there actually is no point in doing the right thing because that won't work. And the only thing that worked is being evil. So she can't kill him because it's and that in itself would be bad to kill this guy. I really like the moral grayness of it all and just
Mm.
the sort of the
And
nihilism.
like that's the thing. The thing that he says to her, like, you're not a wolf. And this is
Such
a
a good
land of
quote.
and this is a land of wolves now. And
Yeah.
it's so true because, like, moving on, she knows, because deep down inside she knows that anything she does back in the States isn't making a difference. It's not making a difference. So that whole thing that she's in this job, obviously, because she's trying to do the right thing, she's trying to protect the people, trying to make a difference, and now she knows she won't.
Mm.
But she's also not the type of person who can make a difference. She doesn't have that thing
Yeah.
in her
Mm.
being, but she'll, yeah, let him go to do it. I like it, but yeah, the whole time I'm just like, just sign it, throw your morals away, please.
Just go live with Daniel Kaluuya. Like you guys can have a nice life together.
Mm.
Oh man, but
Live in
yeah,
a small town where the rule of law exists.
tense scene, and that's the thing. Like, there's so many scenes where she is a strong female character. She has strong morals, but there's so many scenes in this where, like, Josh Brolin just like puts her on the ground and puts his knee in her face, like, stop. He's
Mm.
like, this, like, this is more like than you. Like, you can't
Yeah.
stop this. You're powerless here. And you feel that. You feel like, oh, this is horrible. She's not like this full on badass taking out the guys and stuff like that. And
Mm.
it feels intimidating and stuff like that. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to see that opening scene and, like, that feels like, oh, this is a big bust, right? But then they drum it into you over and over again. Like, you haven't made any difference in all this work you've been doing all this time.
Yeah.
Like, go along with this, see what happens. It might be better. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I was a lot more satisfied with the ending this time, especially knowing it's related to these other two films and having seen Hell or High Water before. It's like, oh yeah, this fits well thematically too. With those films, yeah.
I'll just, like, I love that throughout the film they constantly just show you, like, this random dude who's a cop and his son, like, want him to come watch him play soccer and stuff like that, and they just show, you don't know who the cop is, and then
No.
it's just like, okay, he's the cop, and he's a corrupt cop, oh, he's
Yeah.
dead. Like,
Yeah.
we
That's,
he's gone, and, like, it's kind of like a sad thing, but it's a interesting insight to just have these clips throughout the film where you don't know who this character is or what role they play in anything. But yeah,
yeah, and it kind of creates in you the idea. It's like this is all gonna be big in the end. Like there's got to be some big reveal, or there's got to be some showdown between him and someone.
yeah,
Mm.
And yeah, it's just again though it undermines the message, and it's like no, this is all pointless, and he just gets
yep,
done in. And it's like I've sort of seen the human cost now, and I don't know, it
yeah,
subverts what you're expecting a bit.
yeah, exactly. Because, like, sorry to say it, but, like, because it's like that film where usually you can see what's going to happen. Like, this characters like Benicio del Toro and all that get their revenge on the person, and they let the kids and wife leave. You know,
Mm.
the cop does what he tells him to, and he lets him live. One
Mm.
takes it. No, this is a brutal world, and it's a land of wolves. So I'm going to shoot this cop. Then I'm going to go and shoot his kids before I kill him.
Yeah,
It's
shoot the whole
brutal, man.
Yeah.
It is.
Oh,
It's that whole scene of him getting into that compound is so good. Everything about that scene is really good.
Yeah. Sorry, before we move on, I just want to make one last point about it that will become recurring. I think this film's really interesting as well for seeing how Sheridan's material is treated by different directors, right? Like originally in the script, Benicio del Toro's character has a lot of dialogue, and he actually explains all his motivations fairly early on to Kate, and like he's a lot more of a sort of like, here's why I'm doing my stuff, I've got to get revenge. But as they worked through it, Villeneuve and him were both like, no, it makes more sense for Villeneuve's comment was like, on movies you need to let the action do it, and by him just like holding himself and not speaking, that actually says more. I think that's really fascinating, like just to see a script elevated by this phenomenal director, phenomenal composer, phenomenal cinematographer, phenomenal actors. Like because we then have Sicario too, which isn't. I don't think anyone would say is better than Sicario or even close to being as good.
no.
And that's kind of why, because you then have the same writer there, but you can see that in the hands of a less than director, it just doesn't turn out as good, which is really fascinating.
And I Googled it because obviously I haven't watched Sicario 2. Have you, Conan?
Yeah, it's still good. I like it. It's just no way. It's
A lot of
it's
people
like
said
a popcorn.
it's like John Wick, like a lot more gun combat. Like, oh, how cool is this? Like shooting and stuff like that.
It's just a lot more of an action film. It's lacking all the subtlety.
But that's like absolutely something I love about this film. Like, Grant touched on it earlier. Like Benicio del Toro is like such an enigma in this film. Like, who is this guy who's just like reserved? He's just there. He's silent. He's one step ahead, like 3 steps ahead of everybody else. Like he knows what's going to happen. He's on the plane, like he's having nightmares and like shaking. Like he's, obviously has seen some shit. The way he tortures people by like giving them super wet willies, sticking his finger in John Barenthal's ear. I'm like, oh man,
So good.
it's brutal.
He's got big ears. It's a funny ear to stick your finger into.
Wet
Yeah, but no, great film. Like I really enjoyed it.
It was better than I expected it to be after my first watching of it. All right, shall we move on to Hell or High Water?
Yeah.
In West Texas, 2 brothers go on a bank robbing rampage. They are targeting the branches of one bank in particular, the Texas Midland Bank. This bank is about to foreclose on the mortgage of their ranch and claim the property, and robbing the bank to pay its own loan seems appropriate. On the trail of the brothers is a Texas Ranger, Marcus Hamilton, with only a few weeks to retirement.
Classic.
Classic.
It's probably my favorite trope ever.
I don't know. I feel like I hear that trope talked about more than I've actually seen it in film. Like it must have been a big thing.
Parodies of it.
Big thing back in the day. That's right. And now it's parodied to hell.
70s and 80s, it was a lot more prevalent, and then
your buddy cop action films are always like
yeah. I mean, Danny, like Lethal Weapon's the big one. Anyway, Hell or High Water. Amazing.
Top film. I love it. I really love this movie.
Tell me your experience.
So I had a day to kill in Brisbane one day, and I thought I'll go to the movies 6 times. Hell or High Water was on. Went and saw it. Sight unseen. No, I saw it once, but I knew nothing about it. Didn't have any expectations, and I was really blown away by this movie. Like I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. I think the whole conceit of robbing the bank to pay back their loan is so good. It's chef's kiss. It's perfect. I think this movie is just really well made. Like, and it's got a director that I hadn't really heard of before. Even looking at his stuff now, I don't know that I know any of it particularly, but I feel like it's like there's a lot of good shots. Obviously it doesn't probably stand up to Sicario. Like when it's not Denis Villeneuve, but I still really enjoy this movie, and I think the performances in this film are very, very good too. I think people sleep on this film because I really enjoy this film.
Yeah, Chris Pine's great in this as well. Like,
so good.
Yeah. So's his brother. What's his brother?
Ben Foster.
Ben Foster. He's really good.
He is one of the most underrated actors. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that's the perfect way to watch this film. That sounds like what a treat to like just go into it not knowing anything at the cinema and like get to get that. It'd be pretty cool. Like that's the thing I said before. I hadn't even heard of this film. When I started it up, I was like, "Oh my god, Jeff Bridges is in this. This is even better. This is gonna be awesome." I really enjoyed this film. Like, Chris Pine, I only know from Star Trek, basically, and so I was interested to
Wonder
see.
Woman.
Oh, and Wonder Woman. So I was interested to see how it would go in this, but yeah, like Grant said, I think obviously out of the whole trilogy, this one's the funniest. Obviously, like it's got a lot of humor. I
Yeah.
found myself cracking up a lot watching it. It's like the whole thing of that's what this whole thing is to like they're stealing from these specific banks because that's the bank that they owe the money to do that. It's great. I really love it. It's like this like karma thing. But
Very
yeah,
poetic, yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And Jeff Bridges is great. Him and his partner. I forget the actor's name
Gil
again.
Birmingham, yeah.
Yeah. He's like them two are great, and it's great watching Jeff Bridges just do his thing as this old like sheriff, like that's one day from retirement, and
So
like
good.
it's great, and
It sounds like he's had a bottle of whiskey for breakfast.
Yeah.
yeah, always.
He sleeps on a park bench for one night for no reason. It's really good.
But I love the dynamic between those two as well. Just like in the hotel room, they're watching this like crappy TV. Like it's I don't know. Like there's a nostalgia vibe for that sort of stuff. These guys just sit in this hotel room watching whatever's on the TV and taking jabs at each other and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
this film has brutal stuff in it too. Like the way his partner gets taken out. I'm like, holy
Crazy.
shit! What?
Yeah.
Like I was not expecting it. I had to like double take because I was like, wait a minute, what just happened? Like it's.
Yeah.
I mean, they do. Oh God, there's a lot of foreshadowing to that, but
Yeah,
we'll get to it.
yeah. But I really enjoyed this film, and yeah.
I saw this film. I remember on my birthday, 1 year. So it must have been probably 2016 because it was in the movies. Um, and yeah, I came out and I was like, that was better than I was expecting because I was really into Sicario, and so I was like, cool, Sheridan's making more films. I'm there, and I loved it. This movie is really, really, really good. It's beautifully made. I think something that I love about it so much is that it's like a bit of a subversion where the synopsis is they're robbing banks, right? But that is like a 10-minute part of the movie. It opens with a bank robbery,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much it. And we see a couple of random ones that go wrong, or he runs into the teller, and like when they're having breakfast, and that's
Across
it.
the road, you can see him in the background.
He just runs out with money falling out. But that's it. Like the point of the movie is never the robberies. It's that classic thing of it's a bank robbery movie, but it's actually not. That's not the point at all. And there's this really interesting character drama. And yeah, you just got this beautiful dynamic between two sets of brothers. You got brothers by blood, brothers by law. I know you got that. It's got the sort of like the No Country for Old Men vibes of like these old sheriffs like philosophizing about how the world has changed.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, I think just what this movie is kind of saying, about. I mean, Gil Birmingham points it out. He's like, 500 years ago, this was my. Oh, no, it's like 100 years ago, this was my land, and then the grandfathers of these people took it, and now these people they're getting it taken from them, but it's not by another country; it's by the banks. And just the shots of them going through Texas, where it's just this barren wasteland with billboards everywhere about loan help and debt support, and these these old oil refineries that either don't work or are just raping the land now, and that's the only source of revenue.
And these like empty petrol stations and like just so much abandoned stuff. I really enjoy like those little shots between each major set piece. It's so good. Yeah. And you just feel like this land is dying. And then they come across that farmer who's moving his cattle, and he's just like
Sheridan. That's him.
Yeah. Like,
oh really?
Nobody wants to do this. My kids don't want to take over the farm.
Yeah.
And like the best thing they can hope for is that they'll find oil and they can sell it on. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's a pretty bleak picture of the American South, but
like Jeff Bridges, when they encounter that cowboy, it's just been like there's basically there's no helping him. Like
the fire's gonna burn itself out. That's it.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly. That's not we can't help here.
yeah.
But
Yeah, and like that's really poignant. That observation, I think, of like this is the American frontier now. Like this was once the West, and it still kind of is because it's this weird point where the country's almost dying, and it's still frontier life because they're so poor that it's like I don't know. Like they go to that little cafe, and there's this old lady there who's like, "We serve steak with a baked potato." And
what
it's like,
don't you want?
yeah, and it's like, how does this place exist? But these towns haven't aged in 100 years because they're
Mm.
the edge of civilization, and now they're all dying because of progress. Like it's the what the old west was about, which was progress, is actually killing
Yep.
what is essentially the old west. It's really fascinating. It's really sad because this is, I have no connection to America or the old west. I like westerns as a genre, but it's
Mm.
really kind of sad to be like this is something that's so important to history and to these people and all this stuff. Like just seeing this way of life being killed by capitalism run rampant.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you add in this really like touching story of these two brothers who are, like the lawyer says it. He's like, the bank lent your mama just enough to keep her poor.
Yeah.
It's like that's what banks do.
It's
That's what they do.
is that guy like the best lawyer ever? Like
Totally.
he's so good. And like just the advice of like let the bank manage this money once you put it
You
back
should.
in there because they're not gonna wanna like do anything to get it taken away from it. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know, everything about their plan just it really feels like this is the only way they can even get back at the situation they're in. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. The only way to do it is to be a criminal. I was like,
Yeah.
isn't that interesting in this world of all about, freedom and thriving in the American dream? It's like, well, it's rigged. The only way to do it is to actually not play by the rules.
Go back to the Wild West days.
That's it. That's it. But then you
Life
got
was
Jeff.
fair.
But then you got Jeff Bridges just being like, this sucks, but the law is the law, and you kind of got to live by that as well. And it's a fascinating dichotomy.
Hmm.
I just want to mention a couple comments that made me laugh. Like I love the whole thing when he gets really triggered by the woman calling him stupid, and then like as he as he leaves, he's just like, "You're stupid." Like just has this little insult. The old man, like when they're robbing the bank, and he's just like
He's just firing blindly at them. Is that the
yeah,
guy?
and he's like he's running away. He's just like, "Fuck you, old man."
Like you're right. I think this is the funniest of the three, and I just the banter
easily,
the
yeah.
banter between the two sets of brothers is so good. Like
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
and there's between particularly the Blood brothers, it just feels like there's so many times where it feels like they just want to kill each other. Like this, like I'm stuck with you, and you're pissing me off. Like you're not sticking to the plan, or you're doing something to annoy me. It's just I don't know. It feels so good. I don't know. You can feel the love there, but you can feel the frustration and the yeah.
You get that great scene at the end where like Ben Foster is like, "I love you, Toby." And he's like, "I love you too," and then it stops. It's like, "Hey, Toby, go fuck yourself." You go fuck yourself, and it's like that's it. That's how brothers do it. Like that's how guys often show love, right?
And they're like looking away from each other when they're telling each other they love each other. Like it's so fitting. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just that and the realization, right? Like Ben Foster knows he's worthless because he's sort of he's lost in this life. Like he killed his dad, and he's not getting anywhere because he's got a criminal record, and it's just who he is.
Yeah.
And just the sacrifice he'll make for his family, though. It's the same way Chris Pine's doing it for his kids to try to break that. Like, there's so many insightful conversations and philosophical moments. Like later on the porch when he's like, poverty's like a disease.
Yeah.
It's true. Like that's really really true.
And he's like, not my kids, like not anymore. Like that won't happen to them. That's the thing. Like I love that whole scene. I had this whole thing towards the end. I was like, Jeff, just stop looking into it. I was like, just let him live his life. And I'm so glad that like I love that exchange that they have, and I do enjoy him saying like it's gonna haunt you the rest of your days. Like it's gonna haunt mine too. And then like just I'm staying here. Maybe we should finish this conversation later. It's just like
maybe I'll put you out of your misery, basically. Yeah.
And then it's great because then we have this like this reunited of these two having this little banter, and I can picture that continuing, like these little jabs and stuff like that. But it's but yeah, the whole scene with him taking out his partner, with this like the sniper, and then him going around the long way and like lining it up, and it's beautiful. It's like shocking, but like him being like, "Oh, I'm Lord of the Plains." You know, it's
I'm
like,
Comanche. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Comanche.
yeah. It's
It is
brilliant.
Jeff Bridges' reaction after he gets the shot. He like slaps the guy, and he's like,
Yeah,
chill. He's almost like they're laughing, and then he's crying. He's like,
Yeah.
he's on the verge of
Yep.
just breaking down.
yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
watching. Like Jeff Bridges is one of the greats.
Power force, man. Power.
Yeah.
He really is.
Acting.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, that scene really struck me where he's just like slumped down on his gun, dead. Like
Yeah.
that's just the end of him. Like there's no fanfare. It's just like he's done. He sacrificed himself. Yeah. So good.
Brutal.
So
but
good.
yeah, like that's the thing. I really do like that scene of him. You just see him in the background going across to the bank, across the road. Comes back, just money flying out everywhere. And I love that the waitress won't give him up because she's like, "That's my tip."
Yeah.
She's like, "That's my $200.
That's half my
Screw you
mortgage.
guys! Like, screw you guys!
Yeah.
I don't care what they did."
Yeah, she
It's
wanted Chris Pine so bad.
yeah,
Goodness
She
knows.
did.
I mean,
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Even the when they rob the bank that's full of people, like that moment just feels really tense to me because like they already had that one scene where the dude had a gun. Everybody's packing heat.
Yeah,
It's like
Texas, man.
this is just going to end so poorly. Like straight from the start that this is just the end of the line basically. And obviously it's a disaster. Like.
and the whole town starts shooting on them. Like they leave, and literally people down the street pulling guns out, just shooting at them. It's like, what the hell?
Like this is the reason I get up in the morning. This is why I have a gun in my car all the time, so that this might happen one day.
All these people are like, my chance. It's finally here. Bank robbers.
In 30 years. And so when Ben Foster pulls over and he gets the machine gun and just starts like just
peppering them,
going with it. They just drive away after. It's like, oh, this guy's bad.
They're
It's
like,
also
all
got
right,
that.
that's enough for today. We're going home.
Yeah. It's also got that wonderful scene at the gas station where those two gangbangers roll up. And he's like, boy, you think they're a 10 of me. And Chris Pine just comes out and just drops him. Oh, so good.
He's like, told you, 10 of me.
10 of me. I told you.
Oh, so good. I love all the little details of like that. The plan is so well thought out too. Like they're only they're taking the small bills so it can't be tracked. They're taking it to the casino to cash it out. They're burying the cars when they're finished with them. Like
that's great.
Everything is so organized. Like I love a plan when it comes together. It's a lot of fun.
It is.
All right, we're moving on to Wind River. A wildlife officer, Hawkeye, finds the dead body of a local Native American girl out in the middle of the cold Wyoming wildlife. With the help of an FBI officer, Scarlet Witch, that's her name, isn't it? And locals alike, the two try to uncover what seems to be a mysterious murder. Haunted by his past, Corey spares no time or resources trying to solve this mystery in hopes of it solving his internal struggle.
Whew.
It's a weird cast after watching, Marvel movies.
How did I not know this film existed?
Yeah.
Like, it's because it's obviously like it's after them films. It's a weird decision to cast these two when they have like that bond in those movies as well. It's not like just two people from Marvel. It's two people who, like, Hawkeye's a guide for Scarlet Witch, and he's like basically her mentor and stuff like that. But they're great together. I really feel like they're awesome together.
Yeah, good chemistry.
I really, really like this film. Man, I didn't think I'd be that predictable when you said it earlier, and I was just like, God, it's not just because it's got Marvel people in it. Like, I feel like this movie, I feel like I took the most notes of during it. I feel like this movie is the most profound. Like so many times after a line, I was just like, oh, I got to write that down. Or like so many things where I was just like, that's shit, that's deep. Like that's something that I'm going to carry with me, like, or hope to never have to put into practice and stuff like that. But I feel like there's a lot of profound messages in this.
Some examples.
Just like the way, like a lot of it dealing with grief. Like, obviously, I never would want to deal with grief. I never hope to. But like those scenes, like of him describing to like the father, like you got to steer into it. Like you can't just like erase that because you won't just you'll erase the good memories too. You'll kill every piece of her, and it's like it made me almost tear up because it's like it's this really harsh truth. on how to deal with grief, and it's a really it's true, and it's just like the way he does it is like delivers the line. It feels powerful. I feel for him. I can't imagine like what he went through. Um, but I really enjoy all the stuff. Like obviously, this one, like you said in the last podcast, when we were talking about this, is like like what's happened to Native Americans in like today's world, and what's happened to them, and just there's so many lines, even by I've forgotten the character's name. I don't write characters' names in, but the father who like loses his daughter, who has
Gil
like
Birmingham.
who has like the war paint on at the end, like
Yeah.
that line where he's like, I don't have anyone to show me how to do this. Like,
Yeah,
that's
that's very poignant.
it's really powerful. It's like
the loss of their culture is
yeah,
it's
he's
so
like
sad.
it's supposed to be my death paint, but I don't have anyone to
Yeah.
teach me this. And just like that beautiful scene of like him saying like, "Oh, my son's called me. I'm gonna go pick him up soon after I wash this stupid shit off my
Yeah.
face." But like it just sit here crying, and like he's sitting in this backyard. He's got it's like it's not like he's sitting on a mountain looking over the land. He's like sitting in this backyard. There's a fence in front of him, swing set behind him, cars in the distance to like making noise and driving around. It's really beautiful. I found and really like profound. But just this movie, aesthetic wise, I love the opening with the woman running and like that narration, like that quote.
Yeah, the
Um,
poem.
yeah, the poem I found really good. But yeah, I really really enjoyed this film.
It's really good. I think this is actually the one I probably watched the most times simply because I both like I watched to show my wife, because I thought she'd enjoy it, and I don't know, it's got a really good narrative propulsion.
Mm.
Just kind of the mystery that isn't really a mystery. Like the police chief even says he's like this thing's solving itself, which is pretty funny. But just
Yeah.
kind of like this strange momentum where I just love those films where it's like we got to go check out the drug dealers, and the drug dealers are going to cause problems, and then they're
Yep.
like, there's a shady conspiracy, and it turns out it's this big corporation. Like again, it hits those familiar beats, but it's got a really it's not the point. The point is not maybe the drug dealers did it. It's like no, it's this is a problem plaguing reservations, and
Yeah.
it's like well here's a environmental here's like I can't remember what they're doing like a mining operation or something
Yeah.
and they're operating on this land because there's resources here, and so we've got to go check that out.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I enjoy that, and obviously it's got a really distinct aesthetic, like they all do, right? The first Sicario has the deserts of Mexico and New Mexico. Hell or High
Yeah.
Water has
The West, the
has
desert.
has
The
like the
Texas
classic
prairies,
West. Yeah, all that good stuff, and this is just white snow everywhere. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason I had it in my head that these movies were all like in the South, but obviously this film is not.
No.
But yeah, it was a really good film. Yeah, like you say, like even at the start when you start to get that picture of his life and like his ex-wife and that they've lost the child, and he's taking his son out, and she's like, just be careful with him, keep an eye on him. Stuff can happen out there, and it's like, oh shit, this is bad. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'll be doing this. Like, I'll leave him with the phone. She's just like, like we know, and like the whole thing that obviously you don't get to later, where she's just like, I'm never going there again. Like, I'm not going to that
Never going to
town.
Pinedale again.
Yeah, like I'll never step a foot in there. And you're like, what the hell happened there? But it's just like, obviously that would follow you forever. What you find out does happen there.
Yeah.
Jeremy Renner's great in this. Like, just being this hunter, like just like his equipment's all cool. He looks like he's hunting lions on the thing.
Yeah.
And just it turns him hunting these other predators. I really love it. It's great.
Again, there's that great line. She's like, you hunt animals." He's like, "I hunt predators." It's
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah." She's like, "Well, let's
Yeah.
hunt one with me then." There's
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of good. Again, Sheridan does good dialogue where it's kind of like it's not so subtle subtext, but there's like lines like that. There's a great line where he's like, "You'd think they would know that this isn't sheep country or something anymore." Again, playing on that whole "this is a land of wolves." Like there's a lot of lines that are just very clearly loaded, and sometimes it can get hokey, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it for most of it.
I laughed at the thermals can make your undies wedge up your butt. I can see yours already there. Just like Native American woman throwing sass at
Man, I was so worried that this film was just going to turn into like a fish out of water story where they're always just picking on her for like being an out of towner and, you know, being a city slicker. But I mean, they do it a little bit, and I think they kind of get over it. Like, I think it's the appropriate amount. Like that can just get really tiring in films where it's like, oh no, it's really extreme out here. You're not going to last a minute. But you know, she kind of holds her own, and it's good. I really like. Yeah, they have a really good chemistry together. Yeah, like there's that scene where he's like telling her what happened to his daughter, and that's just like she doesn't even like. She has a really strange like it feels like a strange reaction where she's like, "Oh, can you point me to the bathroom?" And she just goes and, you know, cries. But I appreciate that they're not like, she's not like trying to fix it or anything like that, and they're not trying to turn it into a love scene or anything like that either. It's just like here's him dealing with his grief, dealing with how similar this situation is to what happened to his child. And it's like,
and obviously they sort of like, you get that implication there is that chemistry, potential romantic chemistry between them. Yeah, and like there's the comment like where it sort of shows like that's why she drove there, to be like, I wanted to know why you were helping me. She's like, now I know. Like, she's like, your shit's way deeper. Like, why you're helping me? There's a lot of issues there. Yeah, it's not just about me. I'm gonna head off for the night. You know,
I don't need this.
Like, good luck with all that. But there's that really powerful scene. It's just like, oh shit! Like the Native American, the mother of her just like cutting herself.
Yeah,
and like she's like, go in there if you want. And she opens the door, and it's just like, oh, it's uncomfortable and it's like haunting. Like she's just stricken with grief, and just is in that moment of like raw sadness and grief, and it's really powerful. But yeah,
it's another scene where she's like, she's not equipped to deal with this.
No,
like, I'm just gonna leave. Like,
she's not like, what are you doing? I need to help you. She's just like, what? Like, she's like, this
is outside of my culture. That I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah,
and that's where that thing. But yeah.
That's where that fish out of water stuff works really well. Like you mentioned, where it's just it's like we are outside. A lot of the audience is going to be outsiders, the vast majority of them, and so they look at it and like, we don't really understand this. And yeah, it's nice to not have them being like, we will fix this all. And it raises an interesting question that I will ask, but like, it doesn't play into the white savior trope so much. It's more of like, they can't actually fix it and do anything. All they can do is see how this community that they don't understand handles it, and they go, this is a problem that we can't fathom. And now that leads me to my other question. Did either of you guys have any issue with the fact that Jeremy, like the protagonist, is a white guy?
I did wonder about that. Like, could he have been a Native American? Like, I don't know that it makes the story any worse if he is. And it does, you know, you do run the risk of, you know, the white savior. He kind of does save the day at the end.
He does. Yeah.
I mean, he's really only saving her, but I felt that a bit. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's any different. Like, I think it's a better story if he's Native American, possibly.
Like, because obviously he has a Native American wife. Like, they put him into that culture that
he obviously has a connection. Yeah.
But I don't know. I agree that I don't think there'd be anything taken away if it was Native American. If anything, it could be a better story to tell, like, with it. But I do like with them having him connected, but still seen as an outsider, even though like he lives with them there, like he's part of that, you know, so he knows what's going on. He's gone through the same loss that they have. In terms of losing his daughter and stuff like that, where he can relate on some things and he can see other things, but he's still sort of treated as an outsider, and he's sort of like a good bridge between her being the fish out of water and him, like, knowing what that's like, and, you know, how he just steers through it, sort of thing. There's that other quote that I love about, like, how he stopped fighting the world because he figured the world would win.
Yeah, it was gonna win.
Like, that's a good quote. And speaking of like brutal, like, obviously all these movies have scenes that are brutal. Like, the whole thing with the rape is like,
that whole scene is incredibly uncomfortable. Yeah.
Oh, so bad. Like, like when the whole time, as soon as you saw John Barathol, I'm like, oh, he's a creep again.
Yeah, you think like, he's got to kill someone.
He's like the only good dude in that room of 10 of them. Like, it's horrifying. It's really, really horrifying. That whole scene, and it's it's tragic, and it's the whole thing of like how far she ran, as well, that they
6
talk
miles.
about a bunch, like her will to live or whatever,
Yeah.
makes the revenge on the dude so sweet at the end, where he makes it about 100 meters. But that whole final shootout is amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just that tension where like why are you
It's
like
like you're flanking me, man. Why are you
Yeah.
flanking me?
yeah, and this like conflict between the two different it's really good. When she gets shot through the door, I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit! Like, it's just constantly unexpected stuff.
Just when you think they've like sorted it. All right, it's all right. We're going to actually investigate it now. It's
Yep.
it really, to me anyway, it just paints such a strange picture of like who's in charge there. Like, she's the only one with authority over all these people. Like, I don't understand the hierarchy of like they've hired the land or whatever, so they've got, but the Native Americans obviously have their police force. Like, it just, I don't know. It
But
seems
they don't get any help. That's the thing. Like, and I really
Yeah.
like that he's just like, when like we're not in the land of getting backup. We're in the land
Yeah,
of
it's
like
like,
you're on your own.
yeah, I'm used to no helps. I
Yeah.
was reading about it, it's a really like it's part of a big thing of the film.
mm,
The severe like convoluted mess that is like the law, because there's this landmark legal case where essentially tribal law became a big part. So like you can't actually prosecute crimes on reservations. It needs to be done by tribal law. And so there's all these issues where if there's a criminal in there, like a Native American criminal on a reservation, the FBI and people can't actually go in to do it or something, or like local law enforcement can't go in to get it. So they have to sort of wait for them to come out of the reservation. The crimes are supposed to be prosecuted by tribal law rather than federal law, but as a result, there's this all these loopholes, all this red tape that's like crimes just go unpunished because no one can figure out who has jurisdiction.
mm,
And yeah, it becomes that big part where it's like she's in charge, but she's not in charge, and being in charge doesn't matter either because it's the frontier. Like
yeah.
you'll just get shot out here, and there's 50 miles of snow, and
And you'll disappear. And
yeah,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
nothing's got to change. It's like wow.
And I guess, yeah, the worst thing about all that is it seems to be that the Native American women are just going missing, and nobody's solving it, nobody's looking into it.
Just
Like
no,
that statistic at the end is just, it's terrifying. And
Yeah,
I don't know if it's just me or if I was a huge misogynist before I had a daughter, but like having a daughter and seeing stories like this just like, oh, it just breaks my heart. Like, I really don't want anything like that for my kids, obviously. It's just
like it's the worst thing imaginable.
It's
Like this
so hard
grief
to
that
watch,
these characters
yeah.
deal with makes it incredibly difficult to watch.
Yeah.
That we in that final shootout, I do really like just the shot where, like, he's heading back because he's figured it out, and there's just a shot of the snow, and you can sort of just see this little, like, he's crouched in the snow, and then the dudes just get sniped, and it's just
Yeah.
it's really cool.
There's
But
the dude inside the building just like flies across the table into the winter.
yeah,
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, it is. It's a very good movie.
but even like what they do to John Barenthal as well, like to figure out like that's his body out there that they've just like, oh, it's brutal. And like the whole thing of like what they describe the whole thing of like like the blood crystallizing in the lungs, like it's this horrible thing to
Yeah.
imagine happening to someone. Yeah, it's really, really brutal, this film, but so much in this film I found really profound, and like I'll remember this movie for a long time. I really, really enjoyed this film.
Did you find it strange that they just killed John Bernthal there, though? Like, I get that they're all drunk and they're all coming home having a bit of a party, but they're just like, he gets in a fight and they're just like, cool, let's kill him.
Yeah, see, I didn't know. I found that weird, right? Like, as in he's part of their crew or whatever. Like, obviously he's been living with them for a while.
Yeah.
It feels weird to me that even in a drunken stupor that they kill him, but then even at the end when they just start shooting, like that feels like a strange reaction, particularly with an FBI agent there. Like,
I think
like how do you think that? How do you ever think that ends?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
even if they kill everyone, that they're just going to have like literally the full force of the FBI down their throats.
But
then,
will
like,
they though? Like, I feel like that's the thing. They sent this one FBI person for this case, and it's like they can just ditch them and no one will find them. Like,
But if she goes missing, they're not going to be like an FBI agent just went missing.
No, I
Tough
get it, but
break.
I feel like as soon as they arrive, I feel like all of them are like, oh, they're here looking for. Like, I feel like whatever happened that night with, right, like they crossed a line and they were like we've crossed the line. Like it's all we're in deep shit no matter what happens here on out. But I get what you mean. Like it is very much like like logical people wouldn't do that, but they're not logical people.
I mean, it plays well into the theme of this being the frontier, and like, they are making the law essentially. Like, the FBI really doesn't have any jurisdiction there, and they obviously don't care enough to send more than one person either. So it's I don't know. It felt strange to just then have a big gunfight open up at the end of this movie that's been about grief and about. But
it was cool.
Trying to solve this mystery. It is cool. Like, don't get me wrong. Him with his full white ghilly suit and his
cool,
his red scope. Like, I'm all there for it. Don't worry.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Directed by Taylor Sheridan as well.
Yeah.
Directed and written. So again, quite interesting just to see how this compares to the other two, and just watching how they all bring an interesting style. What that does with the filming, like.
He was like, fine, I'll do it myself.
I've got to do it properly. Dylan who screwed it up.
Beautiful shots in this film too. Like, aesthetic wise, I really like this film. So yeah,
it definitely brings an interesting. Like I say, it's very strangely beautiful, even though there's so many scenes of just white and just like forest that's just white, and it's like there's not much to look at, but he definitely captures like a beautiful element of it.
Do you guys ever wish, because I feel like we get, I mean, these movies are pretty unique, but we do get a lot of films giving us that slice of life in America. Obviously, because America is where these films are made, Hollywood, I get it. But do you ever wish we got more of that sort of stuff with Australia? Like, a little closer to home?
I'm here to tell you that I'm your man for that. All right. That's what I plan. That's my dream. That's what I want for my career. Because that's the exact same thing that I think I love all that sort of, that small slice of it, like Americana. And it's interesting insight into just this is what's going on away from all the flash and interesting stuff. And you're right, we don't really get it in. I mean, we don't get it in Hollywood cinema, definitely. And we don't really get it in Australian cinema either. Like occasionally, you might get one or two, but it's very rare. And I think it's sad because it is like every country has an identity, right? And it's something that I would love to see. Being country guys, it's something that I would really like to see represented better on screen.
Yeah.
Especially like there's a lot of great stories that can be told like with Indigenous culture, like that strike similar chords to what are told in these films as well.
And there's directors like Ivan Sen, and he's probably the biggest one. And Warwick Thornton? They're both two Indigenous directors who sort of do similar things, like very small films. Ivan Sen from Inverell, actually, and they make a lot of small films. Like they make films about sort of that something like. Tiny little area, and here's an Indigenous community living there. Just here's their life and how messed up it is. But yeah, it's a very great. Like we saw it with what was that show, Mayor of Easttown? Like that's sort of tapping into that again, that small town Americana, and just how interesting it is. And it's a well that people keep going back to, and I do wish we were more inclined to do it with Australia and with other countries as well. Just slice of life community would be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so we've given our opinions on what we think. Well, how we felt about these movies. Let's hear about the stats. Stats time. Stats. Sicario, $30 million budget, made $849 million worldwide. Hell or High Water,
$1 million.
$84.9 million worldwide.
Oh, okay. So I thought I heard 849.
So did I.
Sorry, 84.9. Okay, Hell or High Water, $12 million budget, $37.9 million worldwide. Wind River, $11 million budget, $45 million made worldwide. Metacritic, 82% for Sicario, 88% for Hell or High Water, and 73% for Wind River.
What was Sicario? Sorry, I missed Sicario.
82%.
82.
That's interesting that Sicario, I can't even remember this. Sicario was a much bigger film.
Yeah.
Because again, I think Denis Villeneuve had a bit of reputation after Prisoners.
Yep.
And so it came out, it was being marketed as like a new blockbuster, a new crime film. But that's substantially bigger, like over double the budget of both of them.
Yeah.
and made substantially more. Like, I didn't realize Hell or High Water and Wind River were so small.
Yeah, I
Like
didn't realize
know they
either. Yeah,
existed, and like Wind
Yeah,
River especially has two big movie stars that are like,
that's what I meant. That's why I thought it was like everybody knew they were there because I knew they were there. I watched them as soon as I could,
yeah.
and I just assumed that they were like, yeah, everybody watched these movies. They were action, like they were not action, but they were. I don't, they kind of feel like action films in a way. Wind River's got guns on it, and
yeah,
They don't feel like tiny films, right? Like like they've
no,
got
they
big stars in a lot of them. But I mean, I guess the opening, the opening where you get the logos of the production companies and stuff. Like, there's lots of logos there I hadn't seen before and stuff. So maybe it is things I should expect it to be a smaller film, but
so
yeah,
they feel big. Yeah,
Rotten Tomatoes obviously has Sicario 92%,
yeah.
Hell or High Water 97%, and Wind River at 87%.
It's a similar spread, but
Similar
Yeah.
story, yeah.
yeah.
So I'll just say it, that is exactly my order. Hell or High Water is my favorite of these films. Sicario and then Wind River. How do you guys rank these
Really?
films?
So Sicario
I knew
you
it
have
would be.
second.
Yes, I do have Sicario second. Yep. Hell or High Water has a special place in my heart. I don't know why. I love that banter between those brothers. Give me more of that.
Is it because you feel like we're brothers and we banter?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm Ben Foster to your Chris Pine.
Yeah. This one time you brought a girl back to a hotel room that we were sharing. It was very awkward.
I love that scene.
Yeah, it's so awkward though.
Oh, I was like, that's
It covers over his face, just like, oh god.
it. Just captures their relationship, right? Like that.
It does,
awkwardness,
yeah.
But that openness. There's like, I'm gonna have sex in the room with you, and you just got to accept it, man. He's like, I'm not gonna stop you, but I'm not gonna like it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, okay, because I thought with your Sicario disdain, you would have been like, burn
Yeah.
film, I hate it. But no.
No. I mean, I don't know. I say I disliked it. I think it was mostly because I was given high expectations by some people, and I don't feel like it lived up to them. But I definitely enjoyed it. This watch of it more than what I remembered enjoying it the first time I saw it. And Wind River was great. Like, I really enjoyed it. It was definitely a surprise. But yeah, I don't know. I just have a few problems, like, with the logic of the third act. Maybe the third act in all these films is weak, except for Hell or High Water.
Luke, what's your order?
So, oh man,
I
different.
mean, I already know what it is, but I just want you to tell everyone else.
So, like, I legitimately love all three of these films. I had this whole thought after I finished this, where I was like, I feel like, for me personally, other than Lord of the Rings, obviously, this is the best consistent trilogy we've done. Like, personally, I was like, these are three great films. Like, all of them are great films.
Yeah, 3 for 3.
Yeah, I agree.
Wind River was my favorite.
Wow.
Knew it. I should have put money on it.
Second, Sicario.
Yeah.
Third, Hell or High Water. And I loved Hell or High Water. Like, I really, really did. And I could have it as my number 2. Sicario just, I don't know. I could swap those two easily. Like, Sicario, I've had this thing. I've known it for years. I've seen it now twice. And Hell or High Water did take me by surprise, where I've got to, I think, maybe sit on it a bit more and think about it. I really, really enjoyed that film. Sicario, I think Denis Villeneuve just does it for me. Like, I love him as a director, and that film, I think, over the others, has this like distinct look and style to it. Like, you said it. If I'm talking about plots, I don't know what the plot of Sicario is. Like, this dude ends up getting revenge for his family. It's not about that, but like the thrill of watching it, like, I was on the edge of my seat and it was like tense this whole time. The thing on the highway in that is amazing. Like, that 20 minutes it's cinema, as Martin Scorsese would say. Like, it is great. But yeah, Hell or High Water I would have third. And Wind River, trust me, it's not because it's Marvel, people. It really is. Like, it's all, like, I found it the most profound and stuff that when I'm putting it as my favorite, I know it's got weak points with the third act and logic and stuff like that. But it's the one that I think I'll remember the most, and remember lines and messages from that film. And I really enjoyed the story of, like, the Native American people, and I feel like I never see that in cinema or any films these days. to bring up video games, Red Dead Redemption 2, like there's a chapter in that where you're dealing with like people, like Native American people, and I love those scenes. I love those characters, and like the tragedy of what they've gone through, and I felt like it spoke to me more. But all three of these films, top quality. I really love this trilogy.
Mm. I think Sicario is definitely like the most technically best. Like I
Mm.
say, everyone is operating on their absolute best. Denis Villeneuve is easily the strongest director out of the three.
Yep.
And it's the way it's precise, it's almost immaculate.
You know what? I didn't like the SWAT scene.
Yeah.
Grant is right with the night vision. Hello, High Water. I'll put above it. Sicario goes to 3 because
Yeah.
I don't
That surprises
don't
me,
like
but
that,
yeah.
and it's doubled on now that twice
That's
now I don't enjoy that scene. So
that's crazy. That you would say Sicario is worse than Wind River is crazy. I would put it as Wind River is the worst. Sicario is the middle, and I think Hell or High Water is the best as well.
Oh wow, I thought you'd have Sicario at the top. But...
I know you did. I knew you guys did. So it's interesting, right? Because Hell or High Water is the one I've watched the least. I've only seen it 3 times now. Whereas I've seen Sicario, he's like 5, I think, and I've seen Wind River 5 or 6. But it's one of those cases, I don't know, do you guys get it where you see a movie that you're like, I love it so much, I almost don't want to watch it again because I don't want it to take away from my memory of it or like the effect it had.
Yep.
And that's kind of what Hell or High Water does for me. I'm like, it's so amazing that if I watch it too much, I don't want to spoil anything.
I have that with games as well. Like some of my favorite games, I've played that one playthrough and I've never gone back again because it was a perfect experience of playing that.
Whereas like Sicario is like, it's just this great ride of tension, and I just love. I can always watch that because it's entertaining. And Wind River is very emotionally hitting, and like that's I like like I said, I like the narrative of it. I like sort of the ride there. Whereas I think Hell or High Water is just a better film. I think that's the one that really speaks to me. I think it taps into something really profoundly, and it's really insightful for our current state of the world.
Yeah, like I think him talking about being poor, like as a disease, I think is more poignant now that even than when it was made. Like it's interesting seeing the world now. People, I mean, I don't know. We're not going to get political on here, are we? But it's just, it's just like it's expensive to be poor. Like people don't realize it, but anyway. There's a whole thing behind it. Look it up if you're rich and you're watching this podcast. Look how expensive it is.
Sponsor
to be
us.
Like there's a book called The Broken Ladder, which talks about how like poverty and inequality really just like completely brings your life down to this point where it's like you can't get out of it for numerous reasons. It's not something you can just bootstrap your way out of. You can't just go out and get a better job, and there's really deep entrenched issues there. And you're right. I think it's the housing crisis is only getting worse. Like income's changing. I don't even think this is political, right? I think this is just sort of factual.
Like I mean, the cost of living has just skyrocketed in the last even just 2 years. But wages and stuff hasn't kept up with it. There's a lot of people out there who are struggling, and I mean, I feel like we're all fairly, I think we all live reasonably comfortably. We're not on the edge of poverty or anything, but I think we all still feel the effects of it. And but there's obviously that 1% that has all that wealth who just want more
than the other 99.
The dragons living on their pile of gold. Yeah,
that's right.
But to that point, Conan, I think out of these 3 films, if in 2 months' time I was to watch one again, I'd probably watch Hell or High Water. Me personally, like because it's the most fun. Like it is the one with humor. Wind River
that does help.
Was brutal, and profound, and like the stuff with grief. And like I said, I put it as my favorite. It might be one of those films that I won't watch again. Like it is one of those. Sicario is something that a couple of years from now I'm going to be like, oh, I want that tension again. But Hell or High Water, I think, the bromance, the buddy like cop thing. I'm like, I'd watch that again. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us for the good, the bad, and the worst. Next week, I still haven't picked what trilogy I should do.
We're doing Sicario 2.
And some other movie called Sicario. No, we're gonna do the Twilight trilogy. We're gonna keep up with our
Quinn trilogy.
Native American actors and see them in their other roles in the Twilight trilogy. But yeah, it's 5 films, so strap in. It might be our most requested trilogy. From friends and family, they all are desperate for me to watch the Twilight movies again. And, you know, our boy R. Pats is in there.
Yeah.
Vengeance. Can't wait to see him wreck some shop in
Sparkly
Twilight.
vengeance.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah. It'd be great.
Well, thank you for joining us for The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. Our podcast is brought to you today by the somewhat thematically fitting book, The Taste of Iron by C.V. Clarke.
The 4th entry.
Get it on Kindle or contact us for a copy. We also have a gaming podcast you might like called Bonus XP. You can find us on socials at Good Bad Worst and at Bonus XP, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Land of Wolves, baby.